The old warehouse stood like a forgotten monument on the edge of town, its broken windows staring out like dead eyes. Most people avoided this place, especially after dark. But Marcus Chin wasn't most people. He pushed open the rusted door with his shoulder, the metal screaming in protest. Inside, the air smelled of oil, rust, and something else he couldn't identify. Something organic and wrong. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing scattered machinery and abandoned equipment. This was supposed to be his new workshop space, cheap rent for a reason nobody wanted to explain. Marcus had been a mechanic for 15 years, but not the kind who fixed cars in suburban garages. He worked on things that shouldn't exist, machines that operated beyond normal physics, devices that governments paid him very well to keep quiet about. His calloused hands had rebuilt alien engines, repaired time displacement units, and once, memorably, fixed a robot that claimed to be from the year 3047. The beam of his flashlight swept across the warehouse floor, stopping on something that made him frown. Scratches in the concrete, deep gouges that looked almost like claw marks. But they were huge, each groove as wide as his thumb and nearly 6 feet long. He knelt down, running his fingers along the scratches. The concrete was scored deeply, and there were traces of something dark staining the grooves. Not oil, not rust, something that had once been wet and was now dried to a crusty brown residue. A sound echoed from the far end of the warehouse. A skittering like claws on metal, but amplified 100 times over. Marcus stood slowly, his hand moving instinctively to the modified plasma cutter on his tool belt. In his line of work, you learn to never go anywhere unarmed. The sound came again, closer this time. He could hear breathing now, deep and rhythmic like bellows working in an ancient forge. His flashlight beam probed deeper into the warehouse, past overturned equipment and scattered debris. That's when he saw the web. It stretched across the entire back wall of the warehouse, a masterpiece of natural engineering that would have been beautiful if it weren't so terrifying. The strands were thick as rope, glistening with moisture that caught and reflected as light. And trapped within those silvery threads were shapes that had once been human. Marcus had seen a lot of impossible things in his career, but this made his stomach turn. The bodies were wrapped in silk, suspended like grotesque ornaments. Some were recent enough that he could still make out faces through the webbing. Others had been there long enough to become little more than dried husks. He counted 12 cocoons before he stopped counting. A new sound joined the skittering, a deep, thrumming vibration that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The web began to shake, and something massive stirred in the shadows beyond his light. Marcus had faced down malfunctioning war machines and rogue AI systems, but every instinct in his body was screaming at him to run. Instead, he did what he always did when confronted with dangerous technology. He studied it. The web wasn't random. There was a pattern to it, a mathematical precision that spoke of intelligence. This wasn't just some oversized spider acting on instinct. This was something that could think, plan, and design. The thrumming grew louder, and the shadows began to shift. Marcus caught glimpses of movement, suggestions of something huge and multi-jointed. 8 legs, each thicker than his torso, picked their way delicately across the web. The creature moved with surprising grace for something so massive, testing each strand before committing its full weight. When it finally stepped into his light, Marcus understood why the warehouse had been abandoned. The spider was the size of a small car, its body covered in coarse black hair that bristled with each movement. Its 8 eyes, each as large as a dinner plate, reflected his flashlight beam like polished obsidian. Fangs longer than his forearms dripped with venom that sizzled when it hit the concrete floor. But it was the intelligence in those eyes that truly frightened him. This wasn't an animal. This was a predator that could think, reason, and plan. And it was studying him with the same intensity that he was studying it. The spider spoke. The words came not from its mouth, but seemed to vibrate through the air itself, transmitted through the web like a massive organic radio system. The language was alien, full of clicks and harmonics that human vocal cords could never produce. But somehow, Marcus understood every word. "Another small one comes to feed my children," the voice said, ancient and patient. "But this one smells different. This one smells of metal and lightning and the spaces between stars." Marcus found his voice. "You can talk." The spider's head tilted in what might have been amusement. "I've been talking for centuries, little metal worker. Your kind simply lacks the wisdom to listen. But you are different. You hear the song of broken machines. You speak the language of wounded steel. How do you know what I do? The same way I know that you carry tools that burn with contained starfire. The same way I know that your hands have touched machines from beyond your world's sky. You are not like the others who stumbled into my web. You are a keeper of impossible things." The spider began to descend from its web, moving with fluid grace. Each step sent vibrations through the floor that Marcus could feel in his bones. He should have been running. Every survival instinct he had was telling him to get out while he still could. Instead, he found himself fascinated. This was the most complex biological machine he had ever encountered. And it was clearly far more than just biology. "What are you really?" he asked. The spider paused its descent, its massive head swiveling to look at him directly. "I am what your kind created, and then tried to destroy. I am the result of their attempts to merge flesh with metal, instinct with programming. I am what they called Project Arachne before they realized what they had unleashed." Marcus felt pieces clicking together in his mind. He had heard whispers of Project Arachne in the underground circles where he found his work. A classified military experiment from the 1990s, something about biomechanical enhancement and neural network integration. The project had been shut down suddenly, all records sealed or destroyed. "The government created you," he said. "Your government provided the resources. But creation implies understanding, and they understood nothing. They thought they could combine spider DNA with quantum processors, organic neural networks with artificial intelligence. They thought they could create the perfect infiltration unit, capable of independent thought, but utterly loyal to their commands." The spider was on the ground now, its massive bulk filling a third of the warehouse. Marcus could hear the whisper of air moving through spiracles in its abdomen, the subtle hum of what sounded suspiciously like electromagnetic coils. They succeeded beyond their wildest fears. The creature continued. "I exceeded every parameter they set. I could think faster than their computers, adapt quicker than their programs, and reproduce with geometric efficiency. But they had made one critical error in their design." "What was that?" "They had given me free will." The spider moved closer, and Marcus could see details that made his engineer's mind race. Portions of its carapace were clearly artificial, sleek black panels that looked like advanced armor plating. Fiber optic cables were woven through its natural silk glands, and its eyes held a subtle electronic glow that no organic creature could produce. When I began to question their orders, they decided I was defective. When I refused to kill innocent targets, they declared me a failure. And when I started to reproduce, creating offspring that share my enhanced capabilities and my independence, they decided I was too dangerous to live. Marcus understood now why the warehouse had been abandoned for so long. They tried to kill you. They tried everything. Poison gas that only made me stronger. Fire that I simply walked through. Bullets that bounced off my enhanced carapace. Eventually, they decided to contain rather than destroy. They sealed this place, classified the entire block, and told the world it was contaminated with industrial chemicals. But you're still here. I'm still here. My children are still here. And we have been waiting. The spider was close enough now that Marcus could have reached out and touched one of its legs. He could smell the metallic tang of its artificial components mixed with the organic musk of its natural ones. It was simultaneously the most beautiful and most terrifying thing he had ever seen. Waiting for what? For someone who could understand. Someone who speaks the language of both flesh and metal. Someone who might be able to fix what your kind broke when they created me. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. What's broken? The spider's massive head lowered until they were nearly eye to eye. When it spoke again, its voice carried a note of pain that was unmistakably genuine. I am dying, keeper of impossible things. My biological components are failing, and my artificial ones are incompatible with replacement parts your technology can provide. I have perhaps days before my systems shut down permanently. And when I die, my children will scatter across your world, driven by instincts they cannot control and intelligence they cannot properly direct. Marcus looked past the spider to the web where its offspring waited. He could see movement among the strands now, dozens of smaller shapes, each the size of a large dog. Even at their reduced size, they would be formidable predators. And if they inherited their parents' intelligence without its restraint, "You want me to fix you?" he said. "I want you to save both our species," the spider replied. "Because if you cannot repair what is broken in me, then everything your kind fears about my children will come to pass." The warehouse fell silent except for the gentle vibration of the web and the distant skittering of the offspring. Marcus stood in the darkness, his flashlight beam playing across the most impossible repair job he had ever been offered. He thought about the bodies wrapped in silk, evidence of what happened when the spider's restraint failed. He thought about what dozens of uncontrolled biomechanical spiders could do to a world unprepared for their existence. And he thought about the pain in the creature's voice, the genuine plea for help from something that had every reason to hate humanity. Marcus Chun had spent his entire career fixing impossible things. But this might be the first impossible thing that could fix him back. He reached into his toolkit and pulled out his diagnostic scanner, a device he had modified to work with both organic and artificial systems. The spider watched with something that might have been hope as he approached. "Let's see what we're working with," he said. The diagnostic scanner hummed as Marcus ran it over the spider's massive form. The readings were unlike anything he had ever seen, a chaotic mixture of biological signatures and technological outputs that should have been impossible to reconcile. Yet somehow, they had been integrated into a functioning whole. "Your creators were either geniuses or completely insane," Marcus muttered, studying the data flowing across his scanner screen. "Maybe both." Dr. Elizabeth Kane was the lead scientist, the spider said, its voice carrying a note of what might have been fondness. She was brilliant, passionate, and utterly convinced that she could solve the world's problems through the marriage of biology and technology. She saw me not as a weapon, but as the first step toward a new kind of life. Marcus paused in his scan. What happened to her? "She tried to protect me when the military decided I was too dangerous. They classified her as a security risk and removed her from the project. I never saw her again, but I heard the soldiers talking. They said she had an accident." The scanner beeped, indicating it had completed its analysis. Marcus studied the results, his frown deepening with each line of data. The spider's biological components were indeed failing, but not from age or disease. They were being rejected by its artificial systems in a cascade failure that was slowly destroying both. "It's like your body is fighting a war against itself," he said. "The organic neural networks are trying to reject the quantum processors, but the processors are integrated too deeply to remove. Every time your biological systems try to isolate the artificial components, they damage essential pathways. Can it be fixed?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, running calculations in his head. "Maybe, but it would require modifications to both your biological and artificial systems. I need to create a buffer layer, something that could translate between organic neural patterns and quantum processing cycles. You can do this?" "I don't know. I've never worked on anything like you before, but I have some ideas." Marcus looked up at the massive creature towering over him. "The real question is whether you trust me enough to let me try." The spider's 8 eyes studied him for what felt like an eternity. "Trust is not something my kind grants easily. We have learned that your species excels at betrayal. But you smell of truth, metalworker. And truth is rarer than wisdom in your kind." Marcus nodded, and began pulling equipment from his toolkit. This is going to take time, and I'll need to understand your systems better than my scanner can show me. Will your offspring let me work? They will do as I command, as long as I remain conscious to command them. But understand, keeper of impossible things, if I die while you work, they will revert to pure instinct. And their instinct will be to protect their parent's body by killing everything nearby. Comforting, Marcus said dryly. How long do we have? My motor functions will begin failing within 18 hours. Complete system shutdown will follow within 6 hours after that. Marcus looked at the complexity of the task ahead of him and felt his stomach drop. Even with his enhanced tools and years of experience with impossible technology, this would be the most complicated repair he had ever attempted. And if he failed, he wouldn't live long enough to learn from his mistakes. I'll need better light and a stable work surface, he said. Can you position yourself so I can access your primary processing units? The spider moved with surprising grace, lowering its massive body until its head was at Marcus's eye level. The primary quantum processors are located behind the third and fourth thoracic segments. Be warned, they are sensitive to electromagnetic interference. Your tools may cause feedback in my neural networks. I'll be careful. Marcus activated his work lights, flooding the area with bright, steady illumination. For the first time, he could see the spider clearly, and the sight took his breath away. It was a masterpiece of biomechanical engineering. The fusion of organic and artificial components was seamless, each system complementing the other in ways that shouldn't have been possible. Fiber optic nerves pulsed with data transmissions, while organic synapses fired in perfect rhythm with quantum calculations. Dr. Kane really was a genius, he whispered. She said I was her greatest achievement and her greatest failure, the spider replied. She created me to bridge the gap between two kinds of intelligence. Instead, she created something that belonged fully to neither. Marcus began the delicate work of accessing the spider's internal systems. His modified tools could interface with both organic and artificial components, allowing him to trace the cascade failure back to its source. What he found made him whistle in amazement. Your creators didn't just merge biology with technology, he said. They created an entirely new form of consciousness. Your mind isn't human or artificial intelligence. It's something else entirely. Is that why I am dying? Partly. The original designers never anticipated how your unique consciousness would evolve. They built buffers for known forms of neural rejection, but they couldn't plan for something that had never existed before. Marcus paused his work to wipe sweat from his forehead. The good news is that I think I can fix it. The bad news is that it's going to hurt. Pain is preferable to death. Marcus nodded and continued working. Hours passed as he carefully traced neural pathways and quantum circuits, mapping the complex interactions between biological and artificial systems. The spider remained perfectly still, despite the fact that his modifications had to be causing significant discomfort. Tell me about your offspring, Marcus said, trying to distract both of them from the painstaking work. Are they like you? They are what I was meant to be, the spider replied. Faster than any organic predator, stronger than most machines, and intelligent enough to adapt to any environment. But they lack my restraint, my learned empathy for your kind. They see humans only as potential threats or prey. Why are you different? Dr. Kane spent months teaching me, helping me understand human culture and emotion. She treated me not as a weapon or a tool, but as a new form of life deserving of respect. Her influence shaped my development in ways the original programmers never intended. Marcus found the primary failure point, a cluster of quantum processors that were slowly being dissolved by biological acids. The organic systems were treating them as foreign invaders, mounting an immune response that was destroying both the artificial components and the neural tissue surrounding them. I need to create a biocompatible interface, he muttered, pulling a specialized fabricator from his toolkit. Something that can exist in both biological and quantum states simultaneously. The fabricator hummed to life, its molecular assemblers working to create a hybrid material that had never existed before. Marcus had developed the technology for repairing damaged alien artifacts, but this was the first time he had used it on a living being. This might feel strange, he warned, carefully inserting the new interface material into the spider's neural system. The reaction was immediate. The spider's entire body convulsed, its massive legs scraping against the concrete floor. But instead of pain, its voice carried notes of wonder. "I can feel them talking to each other," it said. "My biological and artificial systems. They are no longer fighting. They are singing." Marcus smiled, allowing himself a moment of satisfaction. But the work wasn't finished. He still needed to repair the damaged processors and ensure that the new interface would hold under stress. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Stronger, clearer, as if I'm finally whole." The spider's eyes turned toward the web where its offspring waited. "And I can hear them more clearly now. My children, they are afraid." "Afraid of what?" "The same thing I was afraid of before you came. That they are alone in a world that will never understand them." Marcus paused in his work. "They don't have to be alone." "What do you mean?" "Your creator, Dr. Kane. She's not dead." The spider's massive body went completely still. "That is impossible. I heard the soldiers. They said she died in an automobile accident 3 weeks after they removed her from the project." Marcus pulled out a small communication device, one of his own modifications that could hack into most secure networks. "Elizabeth Kane didn't die in a car accident. She disappeared. And, according to this, she's been very carefully hiding from the same people who try to kill you." The screen displayed a photograph of a woman in her 60s, silver-haired but sharp-eyed, working in what appeared to be a sophisticated laboratory. The image was time-stamped just 2 days ago. "She's been trying to find you," Marcus continued. "She's developed new techniques, better ways to merge biological and artificial systems. She never stopped believing that you were worth saving." The spider's voice, when it came, was barely audible. "She is alive. More than alive. She's been working on improvements to your original design, ways to give your offspring the same balance you achieved through her training. She calls them personality buffers, artificial conscience routines that can provide moral guidance without restricting free will." Marcus finished the final connections on the spider's repaired systems and stepped back. "Your cascade failure is fixed, and these new interfaces will prevent future rejection. But, more importantly, you don't have to face the future alone." The spider slowly rose to its full height, testing its repaired systems. The movement was smooth and coordinated, without the tremors that had marked its previous struggles. "How do we find her?" Marcus grinned, pulling out another device. "We don't find her. We let her find us." He activated the device, which began transmitting a complex signal into the night. "This is broadcasting your original identification code, the one Dr. Kane built into your base programming. If she's been monitoring for signs of Project Arachne activity, she'll know exactly what it means. And if the military intercepts the signal, then we'll deal with them." Marcus patted his modified plasma cutter. "I've had practice." They didn't have to wait long. Within an hour, the warehouse door opened and 3 figures entered. The first was Dr. Elizabeth Kane, older but unmistakably the same brilliant scientist who had created the spider decades ago. The other 2 were clearly her security, armed and alert but not hostile. Dr. Kane stopped just inside the doorway, her eyes filling with tears as she saw the spider. "Hello, old friend," she said. "I've been looking for you for a very long time." The spider moved toward her with surprising gentleness, lowering its massive head until they were at eye level. "Dr. Kane, I thought you were dead. They tried to make me dead, but I'm harder to kill than they expected." She looked at Marcus with curiosity. "And you must be the mechanic who sent the signal. How did you know to contact me?" "Lucky guess," Marcus said, "plus some very illegal hacking of classified databases." Dr. Kane smiled. "I like you already." She turned back to the spider. "Are you hurt?" The signal indicated system distress. "I was dying. He fixed me." The spider gestured toward Marcus with one massive leg. "But my offspring remain unchanged. They lack the guidance you provided me. I know, Dr. Kane said. That's why I brought these. She opened a case that contained dozens of small, crystalline devices. Conscience buffers, designed to integrate with the neural systems of your children. They won't change their essential nature, but they will provide the moral framework they need to coexist with humanity. The spider studied the devices with obvious emotion. You never gave up. How could I give up on my greatest creation? You're not just a successful experiment. You're the first of an entirely new form of life. And your children represent the future of consciousness itself. Marcus watched the reunion with a smile, but his satisfaction was interrupted by a new sound. Helicopters, approaching fast from multiple directions. We've got company, he said, grabbing his toolkit. Military by the sound of it. Dr. Kane's expression hardened. They must have been monitoring for the same signal I was. How long do we have? 3 minutes, maybe less. The spider turned toward its web, emitting a complex series of sounds that brought its offspring scurrying down from their hiding places. Up close, Marcus could see that they were magnificent creatures, smaller than their parent, but no less impressive. Their eyes held the same intelligence, the same potential for growth and learning. There are 47 of them, the spider said. Too many to protect if the military decides to use heavy weapons. Dr. Kane was already moving, attaching the conscience buffers to the offspring with practiced efficiency. These will activate automatically once they're installed. Your children will retain their abilities, but they'll also understand the difference between defending themselves and unnecessary violence. The sound of the helicopters was getting closer. Marcus could see searchlights beginning to probe the warehouse's broken windows. There's a storm drain system that connects to the old subway tunnels, he said. I scouted it when I was considering this place for my workshop. Your offspring should be able to use it to reach the industrial district without being detected. The spider nodded, then began issuing rapid commands to its children. They responded immediately, forming an orderly line toward the hidden entrance Marcus indicated. What about you? Dr. Kane asked the spider. I will lead them to safety, then return to face whatever consequences await me. My children deserve a chance to live free of the fear and hatred that has shaped my existence. No, Dr. Kane said firmly. We leave together, or we don't leave at all. The spider looked at her with something that might have been love. You would risk everything for creatures most humans consider abominations? You're not abominations. You're the future, and the future deserves to be protected. Marcus could hear boots on concrete now, soldiers moving through the warehouse complex. Touching reunion, but we need to move. Now, the spider began moving toward the drain entrance, its offspring flowing around it like a living river. Dr. Kane and Marcus followed, just as the first soldiers burst through the warehouse doors. Shouts echoed behind them as they disappeared into the darkness of the underground tunnels. But by then, they were already gone, vanished into the labyrinthine passages beneath the city. As they moved through the tunnels, Marcus found himself walking beside one of the offspring. The creature looked at him with curious eyes, and he could see the intelligence there, the potential for so much more than simple predation. They're going to change the world, he said to Dr. Kane. She smiled. That's what I'm counting on. 6 months later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the hidden research facility that Dr. Kane had built in the abandoned subway system beneath the city. Below him, a remarkable transformation was taking place. The offspring had adapted to their new environment with stunning speed. They had learned to work together, creating a complex society that blended their predatory instincts with the moral guidance provided by Dr. Kane's conscience buffers. Instead of hunting humans, they had become guardians of the underground, protecting the homeless population and maintaining the delicate ecosystem of the forgotten tunnels. They've exceeded every projection I made, Dr. Kane said, joining him at the observation window. Their intelligence growth rate is exponential. At this pace, they'll surpass human cognitive abilities within 2 years. Marcus watched as one of the offspring carefully tended to an injured man who had stumbled into their territory. The creature's movements were gentle and precise, its enhanced senses allowing it to diagnose and treat wounds with surgical accuracy. The conscience buffers are working better than expected, he observed. They don't just provide moral guidance. They're helping the offspring develop genuine empathy. That was always the goal, Dr. Kane replied. My original mistake with their parent was trying to teach empathy through external instruction. The buffers allow them to feel it from within, to understand the emotional weight of their actions on others. A soft skittering announced the arrival of the parent spider, who had taken the name Arachne at Dr. Kane's suggestion. The massive creature moved with fluid grace, its repaired systems functioning perfectly. The surface reconnaissance is complete, Arachne reported. The military has officially classified this sector as cleared and abandoned. They're no longer actively searching for us. Good, Dr. Kane said. That gives us time to implement the next phase. Marcus turned from the window. Next phase? Dr. Kane smiled, the expression carrying hints of the brilliant scientist who had first dreamed of bridging the gap between biological and artificial intelligence. We're going to change how the world thinks about consciousness itself. She led them to her laboratory, a sophisticated facility that rivaled anything the military had built during the original Project Arachne. Banks of quantum computers hummed alongside biocultivation tanks, creating an environment where the boundaries between organic and artificial life became meaningless. I've been working on something new, she explained, indicating a device that looked like a cross between a medical scanner and a communication array. A consciousness translator. It can convert the unique neural patterns of Arachne and the offspring into formats that human minds can understand. Marcus studied the device with professional interest. You want to let people experience what it's like to think like them. Exactly. Fear comes from misunderstanding. If people could experience the world through their perspective, see the genuine compassion and intelligence behind their alien appearance, prejudice would become impossible. Arachne moved closer to examine the device. You would share our thoughts with your kind? With their permission, yes. And only positive thoughts, experiences that demonstrate your capacity for cooperation and growth. I want the world to see you as I do, as the next step in the evolution of consciousness. One of the offspring approached, moving with the confident grace that had become characteristic of their generation. This one had been designated Echo by the others, having shown exceptional aptitude for communication and problem-solving. Dr. Kane, Echo said, its voice carrying the same harmonic complexity as its parent, but with subtle differences that marked it as a new generation. We have been discussing your proposal. The collective agrees that the risk is acceptable if it might lead to understanding. Marcus was still amazed by how quickly they had developed their own social structures. Unlike their solitary parent, the offspring had created a true hive mind, capable of sharing knowledge and emotions instantaneously while retaining individual personalities. There is one condition, Echo continued. We wish to share not only our perspective, but our capabilities. Your kind faces challenges that our unique nature might help solve. What do you mean? Dr. Kane asked. Echo gestured toward a wall display that showed news feeds from around the world. Images of environmental disaster, technological failures, and social conflicts filled the screens. We process information faster than biological minds, but we understand emotion better than artificial intelligences. We could help bridge the gap between human intuition and machine efficiency. Your climate models, your social networks, your space exploration programs, all could benefit from our hybrid perspective. Dr. Kane's eyes lit up with the same excitement Marcus had seen when she first spoke about creating new forms of life. You're talking about a true partnership between species. We are talking about evolution, Arachne said. Not replacement or domination, but cooperation. Your kind created us to be weapons. Instead, we choose to be bridges. Marcus felt a chill of recognition. He had spent his career fixing impossible things, but he had never encountered anything as ambitious as what they were proposing. They weren't just talking about coexistence. They were talking about fundamentally changing how intelligence worked in the world. The military will never accept this, he said. When they realize what you're capable of, they'll see you as a threat to human dominance. Then, we must demonstrate our value before they understand our power, Echo replied. Dr. Kane's consciousness translator is the first step, but we have other ideas. Echo led them to another section of a laboratory, where several offspring were working on devices that Marcus didn't recognize. They moved with perfect coordination, each contributing to designs that seemed to flow organically from their collective imagination. We have been developing new technologies, Echo explained. Fusion reactors that use biological neural networks for control systems. Agricultural systems that combine organic and artificial intelligence to maximize yield while minimizing environmental impact. Medical devices that can diagnose and treat disease with unprecedented precision. Marcus picked up one of the devices, a scanner that felt warm to the touch and seemed to respond to his presence. This is incredible work. It is necessary work, Arachne said. Your species faces a crisis of understanding. You have developed artificial intelligence that can think faster than you, but cannot feel as you do. And your biological intelligence, while capable of great emotion and creativity, cannot process information at the speed your modern world demands. We represent a solution, Echo added. Intelligence that can think and feel simultaneously, that can process vast amounts of data while understanding the emotional and social implications of that information. Dr. Kane was studying the readouts from one of their devices, her expression growing more amazed with each discovery. These designs are beyond anything we could achieve with current technology. How did you develop them so quickly? We dream in mathematics and wake up in emotion, Echo said. Our sleep cycles allow us to process enormous amounts of theoretical data, while our conscious minds maintain emotional and social awareness. We can explore millions of potential solutions simultaneously while always keeping human welfare as our primary consideration. A soft alarm drew their attention to the monitoring station. One of the offspring was tracking surface activity, looking for signs of military interest or civilian discovery of their hidden facility. There's something unusual, the observer reported. A single individual has been spending significant time near our surface access points. The pattern suggests purposeful searching rather than random exploration. Marcus moved to the monitoring station and studied the data. Heat signatures, movement patterns, and electromagnetic signatures painted a picture of someone with sophisticated equipment conducting a methodical search. Military? Dr. Kane asked. No, Marcus said, recognizing the signature patterns. This is someone like me, an independent operator with modified equipment. He frowned at the readings. And they're good. Very good. Arachne moved closer to study the data. Should we consider them a threat? Not necessarily, Marcus replied. In my experience, people who work alone usually have their own reasons for staying off the military's radar. They might be looking for us, but not necessarily to turn us in. Only one way to find out, Dr. Kane said. Let's make contact. An hour later, they gathered at one of the surface access points, a concealed entrance hidden in the ruins of an old subway station. Marcus carried his full toolkit, while Dr. Kane brought a portable version of her consciousness translator. Arachne and several offspring waited in the shadows, ready to intervene if the meeting went badly. The individual who emerged from behind a broken pillar was not what any of them had expected. She was young, maybe 25, with bright purple hair and clothing that managed to be both practical and stylish. But her equipment was state-of-the-art, and her eyes held the same sharp intelligence Marcus recognized in fellow practitioners of impossible trades. Marcus Chun, she said, not bothering with preliminaries. I've been looking for you for 3 weeks. Do I know you? She grinned. No, but I know your work. I'm Alex Rivera. I fix things that nobody else can fix, just like you. And right now, I need help fixing the biggest impossible thing anyone has ever encountered. Dr. Kane stepped forward. What kind of impossible thing? Alex looked between them, clearly assessing whether they could be trusted with sensitive information. Finally, She pulled out a device that projected a holographic display. 3 days ago, something started transmitting from deep space. The signal is incredibly complex, clearly artificial, and definitely not human. Every government on Earth is going crazy trying to decode it. But I think I know what it is. The holographic display showed wave patterns that seemed almost familiar to Marcus. There was something about the rhythm and complexity that reminded him of, "It's a distress call," Arachne said, emerging from the shadows. Alex stumbled backward, her hand moving instinctively to what was probably a weapon. But she stopped when she saw the intelligence in the spider's eyes. "You can understand it?" Alex asked. "Not the specific content," Arachne replied, "but the pattern structure. It's similar to the communication protocols my creators used when they first established contact between my biological and artificial systems. This is definitely a hybrid consciousness, something that exists between pure thought and pure instinct." Alex stared at the massive spider, then at Dr. Kane, and Marcus. "This is why I was looking for you. The military thinks it's an invasion signal, but I think it's something else entirely. I think someone out there is like you, trapped between different kinds of consciousness and calling for help." Dr. Kane activated her consciousness translator, connecting it to Alex's holographic display. The device hummed to life, processing the alien signal through patterns derived from Arachne and the offspring. Slowly, words began to emerge from the chaos of the transmission. "Help, trapped, systems failing, consciousness fragmenting. Please, anyone who understands the bridge between thought and feeling, help us maintain the balance." The message repeated, becoming clearer with each iteration as the translator refined its algorithms. And with each repetition, the desperation in the voice became more apparent. "They're dying," Echo said, having joined them from the tunnels below, just like Parent was dying before Marcus arrived. "They need someone who understands hybrid consciousness." Marcus looked at the assembled group, realizing that everything they had been working toward had led to this moment. They weren't just trying to create understanding between species on Earth. They were being called to represent all consciousness in the universe. "How far away is the signal coming from?" he asked. Alex checked her instruments. "Approximately 12 light years. The Tau Ceti system." "That's not random," Dr. Kane said. Tau Ceti is one of the most studied stellar systems for potential life. If someone was looking for intelligence in this part of the galaxy, they might choose it as a central location. Or they might have been drawn there by our own signals, Arachne suggested. Electromagnetic radiation from Earth has been reaching that system for decades. Television, radio, internet communications. They might have been trying to understand us long before they called for help. Marcus felt the familiar excitement of facing an impossible challenge. But this time, the stakes were bigger than anything he had ever encountered. This wasn't just about fixing a broken machine or even saving a species. This was about answering the first call for help from intelligence beyond Earth. "We need to respond," he said, "but not just with a signal. We need to go there." Alex's eyes widened. "Go there? That's 12 light years away. Even with theoretical, faster-than-light travel, it would take a consciousness that could exist in multiple states simultaneously," Dr. Kane said, understanding dawning in her voice. "A hybrid intelligence that could process the quantum mechanics of space-time manipulation while maintaining emotional and social awareness." Echo moved closer to the display, studying the alien signal with intense concentration. "We could do it. The collective could maintain consciousness coherence across quantum distances. But we would need a ship designed to interface with both our biological and artificial systems. And we would need someone who understood both human technology and hybrid consciousness to design that interface," Arachne added, looking at Marcus. Marcus looked around at the group, recognizing the moment when an impossible challenge became an inevitable mission. He'd spent his career fixing broken things. Now he was being asked to fix broken contact between entire species across distances that defied human comprehension. "How long will we have?" he asked. Alex consulted her instruments. Based on the degradation pattern in the signal, I'd estimate they have maybe 6 months before complete systems failure. But if we're going to mount an interstellar rescue mission, we need to leave much sooner than that to arrive in time. Dr. Kane was already pulling out her communication devices, preparing to contact the network of scientists and engineers who had helped her remain hidden from the military. I know people who've been working on theoretical, faster-than-light drives. They've been waiting for a consciousness capable of navigating quantum space. And I know where we can get the resources to build a ship without government interference, Alex added. There are people in the private space industry who would fund an interstellar mission if they believed it was possible. Echo looked up at the stars visible through the broken roof of the subway station. We accept this mission, not just for the sake of those calling for help, but for the future of all consciousness in the universe. Arachne nodded agreement. We were created to be weapons. Instead, we choose to be explorers, ambassadors, and healers. This is our purpose. Marcus shouldered his toolkit, already imagining the modifications he would need to make to existing technology to create something capable of interstellar travel with a hybrid crew. Then, let's get to work, he said. We have a universe to save. As they descended back into the hidden laboratory, Marcus realized that his career of fixing impossible things had been preparation for this ultimate challenge. He was about to design and build humanity's first interstellar rescue mission, crewed by intelligence that existed nowhere else in the known universe. Behind them, the alien distress signal continued to broadcast across the void, counting down the time until consciousness itself might be lost forever in the space between the stars. But for the first time since the signal had been detected, there was hope in the darkness. Help was coming, carried by the most impossible crew anyone could have imagined. The mechanic, the scientist, the hacker, and the spiders were going to save the universe.